All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we're diving headfirst into a world where the ordinary rules of driving just don't apply.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking about the 2016 Lamborghini Aventador SV and
Nice.
exploring what makes this beast so unique, especially compared to the cars most of us are used to. Our guide for this thrilling ride is a YouTube video by Will Motivation.
Yeah, and what I found most fascinating about this video is how it captures not just the car's performance, but the entire sensory experience of driving it. This isn't about getting from A to B, it's a full-on immersion. It's a different realm of driving.
Totally. Even before you hit the gas, it's clear this is no ordinary car.
Yeah.
Like no key.
Right.
Just a dramatic flip-up cover revealing the start button.
It's like a ritual.
It's like a ritual,
Yeah.
setting the stage for what's to come. And forget about door handles. You get these sleek door pulls instead.
Right.
It's all about making a statement.
It's a statement that screams supercar, and
Yeah.
it's going to demand your full attention. Even the dashboard reinforces that. With its array of gauges that are reminiscent of a fighter jet cockpit, you've got oil pressure and temperature gauges, constantly reminding you of the high-performance engine lurking beneath the hood.
Okay, so you're strapped in, heart pounding, ready to roll. But even getting this thing into reverse isn't as straightforward as you might think.
Not at all. You've got the standard R button, of course, but the rear visibility is so limited that the rear view camera becomes your best friend. It makes you realize that the Aventador demands a different level of awareness, even for the simplest maneuvers.
Speaking of demanding, let's talk about those driving modes. Strada, Sport, and Corsa. Strada, which means street, is designed for everyday driving. But even this mode has surprises.
Absolutely. Strada mode prioritizes smooth shifting for a comfortable ride, but it also has a fuel-saving trick up its sleeve: cylinder deactivation. It's wild to think that a Lamborghini would prioritize fuel efficiency even in its most tame setting.
Right, it's like this beast has a hidden practical side.
Yeah.
But then you switch to Sport mode, and the car's true personality emerges.
It's like unleashing a wild animal. The shifts become more aggressive, and you start to hear that iconic guttural roar from the engine, especially when you downshift.
Ah, those downshifts. I've got to admit, I was a bit lost when they talked about that in the video. Can you break down what a downshift is and why it matters so much in a car like the Aventador?
Sure. Downshifting basically means shifting to a lower gear, which increases the engine's revolutions per minute, or RPM, and gives you more power for acceleration. In a high-performance car like the Aventador, the downshift is designed to create that dramatic sound, the roar, that sends shivers down your spine. It's a key part of the sensory experience.
So it's not just about going faster, it's about the sound, the feeling, the whole drama of it.
Exactly. And the Aventador's transmission and engine are specifically designed to amplify those sensations, especially in sport mode. But
Oh.
then there's Corsa mode, which is the ultimate test of skill. This is full-on manual paddle shifting, giving you complete control over the car's performance.
Sounds intense.
Yeah.
And regardless of which mode you choose, there's this M button that lets you switch between automatic and manual shifting at will.
Right.
It's like having the best of both worlds. But here's something that caught me off guard. The car automatically shifts into neutral at a stoplight.
Yeah, that's one of those quirks that takes some getting used to. Imagine pulling up to a light thinking you're in gear, and nothing happens when you hit the gas.
Whoops.
Yeah. Definitely not something you'd find in your average commuter car.
No kidding.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that set the Aventador SV apart, let's talk about the steering. It's incredibly sensitive, almost like the car is reading your mind.
That's a great way to put it. Even the slightest movement of the steering wheel results in a noticeable change in direction. It's exhilarating, but it demands constant focus. You can't just zone out behind the wheel of this car.
That's definitely not the carpool lane cruiser then.
No.
And here's something I found surprising. No cruise control. In a car designed for speed and long drives, that seems like a strange omission.
It does make you wonder about the design philosophy, doesn't it? Why would a car built for pushing limits lack such a common feature? Perhaps it's a deliberate choice to emphasize driver engagement and control.
Maybe they figure anyone driving this beast is going to want to be fully on control, experiencing every nuance of the road. It's almost like a philosophical statement about the nature of driving, isn't it?
I think so. The Aventador isn't about making driving effortless. It's about heightening the experience, making every input, every turn, and every downshift a deliberate act.
It's like the car is saying, if you're going to drive me, you're going to drive me properly.
Yeah.
But then, just when you think you've figured out this beast's personality, there's another surprise. The auto start-stop feature.
It does seem a bit out of place, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This fuel-saving feature you typically find in eco-conscious cars popping up in a Lamborghini. But maybe it's a sign of the times, a nod to efficiency even in the realm of supercars.
It's a fascinating paradox for sure. And luckily, you can disable it if you want that pure, uninterrupted Lamborghini experience. But before we get too deep into the philosophical implications of auto start-stop, let's talk about the front-end lift system. This thing is a lifesaver for those pesky speed bumps and steep driveways.
Absolutely. You literally lift the front of the car to avoid scraping that precious undercarriage. It's essential considering how low to the ground the Aventador sits. But remember, you've got to engage it before you approach the obstacle, as it takes a few seconds to activate.
Good point. And once you've arrived at your destination, don't forget the double click on the parking brake.
Right.
This is a car you definitely don't want rolling away on you.
Definitely not. So far, what stands out to you most about how the Aventador SV's driving experience differs from, say, a regular sedan?
I think the biggest difference is the sheer level of engagement it demands. It's not a car you can just passively drive. It requires your full attention and rewards you with an incredible sensory experience. Every input, every sound, every movement is amplified. It's like stepping into a different world where driving is an art form.
I completely agree. And we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore, especially when it comes to those incredible downshifts and the delicate art of steering this beast.
Exactly. And of course, we can't forget about the most thrilling aspect of all, the Aventador SV's mind-blowing acceleration.
Yes.
We'll dive into all that and more in just a moment.
All right. You know, it's amazing how something as seemingly simple as a downshift can become such a defining characteristic of a car like the Aventador SV. It's more than just a mechanical action, it's almost a performance in itself.
It really is. In the video, Will Motivation emphasized that you don't get the full effect of those dramatic downshifts in Strata mode.
Yeah.
To really make them sing, you need to be in sport mode.
That's because sport mode changes the entire character of the car. It's not just about the engine and transmission responding more aggressively. It's about creating an experience that's visceral and engaging. Those downshifts are a key part of that, turning a routine gear change into a symphony of sound and power.
And it all ties back to what we were saying earlier about the Aventador SV being a driver's car.
Yeah.
It's not about isolating you from the experience. It's about putting you in complete control and making you feel every nuance of the machine.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the steering. Remember how we talked about its incredible sensitivity? Well, Will Motivation actually said you could look like a drunk driver if you're not careful.
You wasn't kidding.
Yeah.
You really do have to be hyper-aware of your inputs in this car. The slightest twitch of the steering wheel translates to a noticeable change in direction.
It's almost like the car becomes an extension of your body, requiring a level of precision and finesse that you wouldn't find in a typical car. It's not something you can master in a few minutes. It takes practice and a deep understanding of how the Aventador responds to your every command.
Which probably explains why they decided to omit cruise control, right? It's as if they're saying, if you're going to drive this car, you're going to be fully present and engaged the entire time.
That's a great point. It's a deliberate choice that reinforces the Aventador SV's philosophy of driver engagement. It forces you to be in the moment, to feel every curve in the road, every shift in weight, every surge of power.
It's almost like a meditation on the act of driving, stripping away all the distractions and conveniences to leave you with the pure essence of the experience.
I love that analogy. It's not just about getting from A to B. It's about savoring the journey, feeling connected to the machine and the road. But then, just as you're reveling in this purity of purpose, you encounter the auto start-stop feature.
I know, right? It's such a jarring contrast. It feels so out of place in a car that's all about performance and visceral thrills.
It does, doesn't it? It highlights an interesting tension that exists in the world of modern supercars. On one hand, there's this desire for ultimate performance, for raw and unadulterated driving experience. But on the other hand, there's increasing pressure to improve fuel efficiency and reduce emissions, even in these high-performance machines.
So it's like a balancing act between two competing forces.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Aventador SV, with its inclusion of auto start-stop, embodies that compromise. It's a reminder that even the most extreme performance-oriented vehicles are not immune to the demands of the modern world.
It's a fascinating insight into how the supercar is evolving, isn't it? It's not just about raw power and speed anymore. It's about finding a balance between performance and responsibility.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder how these competing forces will continue to shape the future of high-performance cars. Will we see even more eco-conscious features in supercars? Or will there be a resurgence of pure, unadulterated performance machines?
It's definitely something to ponder. But let's bring it back to the driving experience for a moment. If you had to distill the essence of what makes the Aventador SV so unique, what would you say it is?
I think it's the way it elevates driving from a mundane task to an art form. It's a car that demands your full attention, your skill, and your respect. And in return, it rewards you with an experience that's both exhilarating and unforgettable.
Beautifully put. It's not just about the speed, the power, or the technology. It's about the connection between the driver and the machine, the feeling of being completely in control of a force of nature.
Exactly. And while we've explored many of the nuances that make the Aventador SV so special, we haven't even touched on the heart of the matter. It's acceleration.
You're right. We've talked about the steering, the downshifts, the philosophy behind the design, but we haven't experienced the raw, visceral thrill of unleashing all 750 horses under the hood.
And that's something you can't fully grasp until you've felt it for yourself. So buckle up and get ready for the grand finale of our deep dive, because we're about to explore the mind-bending acceleration of the Lamborghini Aventador SV.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into the Lamborghini Aventador SV.
Yeah.
From that theatrical startup to those spine-tingling downshifts, we've really explored what makes this car so unique, so demanding, and so rewarding. But there's one final piece of the puzzle that we need to examine, and that's the Aventador's heart-stopping acceleration.
It really is the culmination of everything we've discussed so far. You know, the sensitive steering, the aggressive driving modes, the lack of cruise control, all of these elements point to a car that's built for pure, unadulterated performance. And that performance is epitomized by the Aventador's ability to launch you from 0 to 60 mph in under 3 seconds.
Yeah, it's the kind of acceleration that defies description. You can read about it, you can watch videos of it, but until you've felt that kind of G-force pushing you back into your seat, it's almost impossible to comprehend.
Yeah. It's a visceral experience that goes beyond mere numbers. It's about feeling the raw power of that 750 horsepower V12 engine surge through the car, propelling you forward with an intensity that's just unlike anything you've ever felt before.
In the video, Will Motivation described it as feeling like a pool when he really punched the gas. It's like being launched from a slingshot.
It's a perfect analogy, and that's what makes the Aventador SV so addictive. It's that constant temptation to tap into that immense power, to feel that rush of adrenaline as you rocket toward the horizon.
It's almost like the car is daring you to push it further, to explore the limits of its capabilities and your own.
Absolutely. It's a challenge that few can resist, but it's important to remember that this level of performance demands respect. The Aventador SV is not a toy. It's a precision instrument that requires skill, focus, and a deep understanding of its dynamics to wield effectively.
It circles back to what we were saying earlier about the Aventador SV being a statement. It's a statement that says, I'm not for everyone, but for those who understand, I offer an experience that transcends mere transportation.
Well said. It's a car for those who appreciate the art of engineering.
Yeah.
For those who crave a connection with the machine, and for those who aren't afraid to push boundaries.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to leave you with this thought. The Lamborghini Aventador SV may not be the most practical car for daily driving, but it represents something far greater. It's a symbol of human ingenuity, a testament to our relentless pursuit of pushing the limits of what's possible. It's a reminder that sometimes the most rewarding experiences come from embracing the unconventional, the exhilarating, and the downright audacious.
Beautifully put. And it reminds us that even in a world increasingly focused on efficiency and practicality, there's still a place for the raw, unadulterated thrill of a machine like the Aventador SV.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Lamborghini Aventador SV. We hope you gained a new